when you see an egg label that says produced without added growth hormones,
That's like saying Iowa has good corn. It's impossible.
Okay, good morning, Evan. How are you?
Good, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Are you ready for Christmas?
I am so ready for Christmas. All my presents are under the tree. I'm so excited. Can't wait for Santa to come.
He still comes to your place?
Oh, yeah. Every year.
Despite everything?
Despite what? Despite me
Your
not
naughtiness.
believing in him? Oh, my naughtiness. Right.
Yeah. He can overlook it for you.
Yeah, I'm kind of a special guy.
One of his favorites.
I got special Santa privileges.
Yeah. Well, we're about to record another episode of Rock Hard Caucus. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. This is our 228th episode. It is now December 20th of 2025. We're almost done with this year. And people who've been listening to the podcast for the last few months are probably familiar with flock safety. I've been complaining about them a lot and how my town has paid them a bunch of money to put up cameras to log the license plates of everybody who passes them. And I think that's bad. And I complained to my city council to no avail. And I complained on the podcast about it to no avail. But I haven't been super plugged into what's been going on since maybe October. I don't know. I can't focus all my attention on this. I have other responsibilities. But we have a guest today who I'm hoping can, shed some light on like, what's the deal here? What's going on with these cameras and these cities that keep buying these cameras? We have the proprietor of the website, haveibeenflocked.com, present on the podcast today. I'm going to use your professional name as it's listed on the website first. H.C. Van Pelt. The mysterious H.C. Van Pelt is here on the podcast. But we're just going to call him Chris. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not very good at these introductions.
No, neither am I. But we are excited to have you here because I've been trying to keep up with your work on that website, and you've been writing a lot. You've been filing open records requests with all these various government entities and police departments and everything. But I can't really keep up. So I thought that it might benefit us and, anyone listening to just have a conversation about it for a little bit. So this website, Have I Been Flocked? What's the main purpose of this site?
The main purpose of the site is to show kind of how prevalent these searches are. Police will, or Flock will collect the license plate from everyone passing one of their cameras and store it in a database. And, the website kind of exposes how often police will search these databases and the reason that they give for searching the database. And that, it leads to a lot of valuable insights, I think, about the utility of the system, because there's a big disconnect between the information going on the website versus, the sales pitch that it stops all these awful things from happening.
Right. In fact, let me just jump in with something here. I've got the Coralville, Iowa Police Department transparency portal, which it's a tab that I keep open on my computer and I refresh every few days just to keep abreast of the stats. Right now it says that they have detected 125,201 unique vehicles in the past 30 days. And I believe they only have 2 active cameras up right now in Coralville, which is a city of around 25,000 people. So we're looking at 5
I don't think those cameras are even on the main road, right?
The ones they have set up are right next to an interstate, on and off ramp. So I'm sure there's a lot of cars passing by, but yeah, it's only 2 cameras in the whole city. So there's one spot they've detected 125,000 cars in the past month. But I wanted to look at the bottom of these transparency portals. They include recent success stories. So like you were saying, this is how they sell this to, I guess they're trying to sell it really to city councils, but to the public. Here's the first success story in Coralville. 2 suspects entered a local Best Buy and stole over $9,000 worth of merchandise.
It's over 9,000!
Surveillance footage was able to identify a sedan as the suspect vehicle. Flock cameras allowed investigators to confirm the suspect vehicle's presence and identify the individuals involved within 2 hours of the report. Without the flock cameras, this case would not have been solved. So, I mean, it seems to me like they got an image of the car off of like more traditional surveillance footage, right? But then they were able to track the car's location using the flock cameras.
That would be, what I would assume reading this, but yeah, the story doesn't quite track, because if they were able to identify the car from Best Buy surveillance footage, then what did they use the flock cameras for?
Yeah.
Right. They knew when that car was at a certain location at a certain time, I guess is what the flock camera can provide them with. Let me do one more of these success stories, because I got 4 of them here. A vehicle backed into a gas pump at Come and Go, causing $11,000 worth of damage, and fled the scene. The vehicle was able to be located on flock cameras, which developed a suspect in the case. So that doesn't sound like they've solved this case.
Well, I don't know the details, but just going on the information here, I would think the suspect would be at Come and Go.
Well, they fled the scene, though, so...
Sure, but it's still probably the same suspect.
I guess what they're trying to get across, I think, is that these are so valuable as a police resource that crimes like this, stealing thousands of dollars of stuff from Best Buy, backing into a gas pump, and then driving away, were crimes that were previously going unsolved because they didn't have this technology.
They're kind of giving themselves away a little bit. Like, we're really bad at traditional policing.
Right. We don't know how to do any of this. So those are a couple of stories that they're putting like front and center as to how these cameras are being used. But what have you learned, Chris, from like the search logs?
Much less than I would have liked to have learned. Yeah, if you go through the search logs, and this is pretty much universally true for any police department that I've seen, the reasons are almost entirely non-descriptive. Like, it's a big selling point for Flock and for police departments to say, hey, we have this transparency, we have accountability, every search requires a valid reason. Some departments go a little bit further. They say, every search requires a valid case number.
Right.
But if you actually look at how it's being used in the real world, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's probably approaching, 30-40%, where the reason is just some variation of the word investigation or suspect.
Right. Yeah. And this is how they've tried to like ease the concerns of, the outraged public who, a lot of people are not comfortable with the idea of like just a little device on a pole pinging every single time I drive past it, basically tracking my location at all times if there are enough of these cameras around my city. But yeah, the cops have to have a good, clear reason to be searching, your plate numbers or whatever. But the reason can be as vague as suspect investigation. Right. So one of the features of your website is that you can enter your own license plate number to see if your plates have come up in any of these searches. And I'm wondering, like, where did you get that data? Because that's not something that we can easily access, right, as the public?
So first, a small distinction. It doesn't check if your plate has come up in the search. Like, it shows if anyone searched for your plate. It's a very small nuance, but yeah. If someone somewhere typed in your plate in the search field, and it doesn't even have to be in Iowa, it could be in a completely different state, then it would show up as a search result. Right. Just that small distinction. How that information gets there, some of it is, some of the information is from the transparency portal that you just mentioned, but some departments publish their search reasons and search times there, and that's basically the limit. But the main log files are what they're called calling network audit logs and organization audit logs, and those track which searches are being done by a specific department. In the case of the organization logs, so the idea is that, if you mentioned Coralville, that the Coralville chief of police or whoever would pull up this organization audit log, see all the Coralville officers, see all their search reasons, and then just kind of see if, everything was being done for a valid reason, and just go through that and audit everything. So those, you see, I have the portal up here. The Coralville, for your example, that log would contain 63 searches in the last 30 days. That's, that's kind of a reasonable thing to audit. And then the main item is the network search log. And that one tracks anything that hits the department's specific cameras from anywhere. So for Coralville, they have 2 cameras, but anyone who is on the nationwide network doing a search for anything would hit those 2 Coralville cameras, and that would generate like an entry in Coralville log files. Mm-hmm. And those log files are public record. Police departments tend to be resistant to disclosing them as public records, but there's nothing actually in the law that says, this is confidential information, which is the reason that Flock can store it. But yeah.
Right.
Some departments do release it. Illinois, Washington are 2 states that tend to be friendlier to open records requests. That's how we get that information. And there's about 10,000 searches of the national network on any given day. And those would all hit, places like Coralville in their audit log so that they can go through every item and see if it's a valid search.
Yeah. I mean, who's actually auditing this?
Well, cities have adopted policies that say, we're actually auditing this. We're auditing this on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. I have not seen evidence that that's happening.
Right.
But yeah.
It's another one of those things that they say to ease the concerns of local civil libertarians, right?
Right. We're checking our work.
So I think I have 2 follow-ups to what you were just talking about. You talked about national searches happening from anywhere that pull data from, cameras like the ones we have in Coralville. Continuing to use Coralville as an example, they, per motion presented by Councilor Mike Knudsen, they have limited their sharing to within this county, Johnson County, Iowa. So if you look at their transparency portal, it says that Coralville PD is only sharing their data with the North Liberty Police Department and the University of Iowa Police Department. So do you understand like how the data is then being limited when like somebody's conducting a search from like somewhere in Texas, maybe that would typically pull up data from Coralville, but Coralville has limited who they're sharing with. Like, where is that data and who can actually access it? Do you know that?
Do I know that? No. Do I have an answer? Yeah. There are several types of sharing possible within the Flock network. First of all, to answer your one question, everything is stored with Flock. That's just how it is. It's one giant database. Essentially, every single data point is stored with Flock. And yeah, basically Flock creates like sort of logical walls between cameras and between plates, but it's all one giant thing. So obviously Flock has access. Their contractors have access, just to be able to sort of partition that out. Then there's the type of county sharing or the organization to organization sharing that they have, where they have a specific agreement with North Liberty or University of Iowa, where they just agree, I can see your stuff, you can see my stuff. They can go back and forth with actual images rather than just limited to license plate searches.
Oh, okay.
They can do they can search for more than just license plates as well because they have those images. Or they can search for make and model of car. as long as they have that one-to-one agreement. And then the other two levels are statewide sharing, which is just a single checkbox saying, I'm opting into everyone in the state. And it's a reciprocal thing, so I'm also going to share all of what's ostensibly my data with the rest of the state. And the nationwide network works the same way. Single checkbox, and anyone that's on the network gets access to license plate searches.
Okay, but the images are only on that sort of like one-to-one, like peer-to-peer relationship?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and those are the ones that show up in the transparency portal. The statewide and the nationwide don't show up there.
I see. Okay. Well, I am put at ease by this. It says that facial recognition, people, gender, and race are not detected by these images, so it should be okay, right?
That's what they say. There is some evidence that there is hardware in the cameras that does facial recognition. There's no evidence that they're actively using it for facial recognition, so I do want to make that distinction.
But why would the hardware be there if that wasn't potential? Yeah.
These are questions that would come up. And then in the search logs that I mentioned, we've also seen that they have different categories for vehicles and people. And on those, in those LPR search logs, the license plate logs, so far there's one search for a person with a red shirt that's been approved. And that, it looks like a test sort of setup, but it is evidence that, they are working toward being able to search for people.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like people might be being detected.
They are being detected.
Yeah.
I mean, that's established at this point. They are being detected. They are being captured. The license plate cameras work, through basic motion detection. So anything that passes by the camera will be captured, whether it's a person or a dog or whatever, anything that trips the sensor.
I see.
So that's what we know. We know they're being captured. The researchers show that they're labeling different categories of data abroad. Also shows training material that says people need to be labeled. I don't believe that's very detailed. So it's not like, they're not labeling gender and race according to those documents, but they are labeling people. So, the capability is definitely there.
Right. So it seems like this might be kind of like a get your foot in the door situation, sell this to communities as like, oh, we're only tracking the vehicles, which are already registered with the state. So what are you really concerned about? You're on public roads. And then, once you've got the infrastructure there, you can start to, crank it up a little bit, turn up the surveillance system, track everything, and then you're really preventing crime.
Yeah, well, the track everything is something that Garrett Langley, Flock CEO, has already admitted to in his conversations with the city of Denver. He said that, yes, the system, it does track everything, it does tag everything, but we don't make everything searchable because there are constitutional issues with that.
Okay, so they do have there's a larger database that isn't just being accessed. It's only for Flock. They have all this data that's not being shared. Yeah,
I mean, I can't say that they have the data. Maybe they're very diligent about deleting all the data after they tag and label it, but...
I'm putting an awful lot of trust in this Flock company, which, as they say, has never been hacked, which means that they will never be hacked again in the future, obviously.
No, it's impossible. If it hasn't happened
my question is why would you even bother hacking them? Because they're already exposing all the data themselves. So.
True.
Yeah. And so much of this is legally a public record that you have to provide when requested. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned that police departments in Iowa are particularly resistant to complying with open records requests. But their search audits, everything involving these Flock cameras is supposed to be a public record, right? I'm wondering if you've run into, because I've experienced this where I requested something and there was just sort of a blanket rejection because whatever I was asking them for was part of an investigation. And because it's part of an investigation, they just feel that they have no legal obligation to provide it.
That is one of the reasons that comes up. Yeah. The ACLU and University of Iowa just did a whole study with public records requests for ALPR logs and things like that. And they got, just all these different reasons why it's not public information. Some cities disclosed some of the information, but it was all very piecemeal, very limited. I believe it was Davenport that even claimed that the transparency portal that you referenced, the thing that's on the public internet that anyone can pull up, that's confidential information that they can't give out in response to a public records request. So, yeah. There wasn't a single organization. I think there was about 50 that they requested logs from. Not a single one responded with the network logs.
Yeah, I read that you have a recent piece about that, the ACLU and university, looking into this. There's one city that, it was Clive, that provided like two completely contradictory reasons for denying requests, involving Iowa Code Chapter 692, which, according to your piece here, this part of state law requires agencies to maintain logs. And in two separate, request responses from the city of Clive, they said once that they actually don't maintain the logs that they're legally required to maintain. And then they also said separately that they do strictly comply with the law, and so they cannot disclose what they have in their logs that they said they weren't maintaining. That's a perfect summary. It doesn't make any sense, but yes. Yeah, that's I imagine this is something that you run into a lot, but even in my I've dipped my toe into the world of open records requests, and it is bafflingly frustrating. There's no consequence for these public entities giving you contradictory responses like this. Like, you can hold this up to anyone in authority and be like, this does not make sense. They're not following the law, and you get crickets. There's nobody can do anything about it.
There are, organizations that could do something about it, but so far they haven't, unfortunately. One thing that's also interesting to note about the Clive response and Chapter 692 and the requirement to keep those records is that chapter very specifically says that, if you're going to keep what they call intelligence data, which is what Clive is saying is what they're collecting through Flock. It says if you're going to keep intelligence data and somebody else wants access to it or wants to access it, you're required to keep this log, just to be able to audit who accessed this intelligence data and for what reason. And so Clive's answer there is very kind of, Kafkaesque. And they're saying that the logs themselves are intelligence data and therefore confidential.
Right.
So if you wanted to access a log, you would have to log it, and then you would have to log that log. And it just logs all the way down.
Yeah. It's you got a log feedback loop going.
Right.
I mean, that's one way to sort of avoid disclosing things, is just to make the data itself recursive, so it's just constantly growing, and you can never fully provide it to anyone because it's still ongoing.
Yeah, it's a very creative setup, I think, or a very creative legal theory. And so, yeah, for Clive specifically and the intelligence data thing, I did file a complaint with the Iowa Public Information Board, which is, you're saying, all we get is crickets. But the Iowa Public Information Board was set up, I believe, in 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, to be the organization that looks into these types of responses from local governments and state agencies, and to take action when responses are completely ridiculous or just don't have any basis in law. That complaint was not investigated. It was dismissed before it was even accepted. And basically, the Iowa Public Information Board said, yes, no, this is all intelligence data. That makes complete sense. And through a later open records request, I got my hands on an email from the Clive City attorney sending an email to the Iowa Public Information Board's director saying, oh, thanks, nice job on this one. So that raises a few questions in my mind, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
So how did you get into open records requests? You seem to be pretty seasoned at this, and you know how to ask for things.
I mean, I know how to ask for things. I don't know how to get things. How did I get into it? It was Flock that got me into it, funny enough. I lived in Windsor Heights around 2022, 23 when I saw those cameras like popping up everywhere. And I was kind of curious. Yeah, I think Clive was an early adopter in Windsor Heights. It was like right adjacent to Clive, so I passed the Flock camera like every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was wondering, hey, where are these things? Are there more of these things? And I kind of started looking around, and then I started doing the public records requests, and I immediately got waylaid by local governments. West Des Moines, for one, didn't want to disclose where their cameras were. The defense there was very interesting. They said they don't know where they are. They don't actually have any records of where they are. So I thought, well, that sounds a little, bit off. So again, I filed a complaint with the Iowa Public Information Board. And they said, yeah, no, that sounds right. Like West Des Moines saying, the information on where the cameras are is stored with Flock. So West Des Moines doesn't have that information. This is with Flock. So yeah, that sounds good.
So we're supposed to believe that this city's agreement with this private company was that you can put your stuff up somewhere in our city and you don't have to tell us where, but we will use the data from this technology.
Well, they told them at some point, like the record exists. It's with Flock. So on a Flock server somewhere, there is a map of where West Des Moines cameras are.
Mm-hmm.
But the theory is that is not a public record because it's stored with Flock and not with West Des Moines.
Sure.
If you ask for the map, West Des Moines just says, yeah, we don't have it. Sorry. Don't have anything to give you.
So when they're conducting searches on the cameras that they have within West Des Moines, how could that data be useful if they don't know where the camera's located that's giving them the data?
That's not for me to answer. So yeah, that's one that I challenged in court and won that case. So the Iowa Public Information Board decision got overturned, got reversed, and the court told IPIB, hey, you guys need to look at this again because it doesn't, this sounds like a public record. It doesn't really matter whose server it's on. It's still a public record.
Okay.
So yeah, I hope that would be the end of it. But the Public Information Board, interestingly, not West Des Moines, IPIB, they appealed the decision, and that case is still ongoing.
I'm sure if you're interested in this, listeners, you're probably familiar with the dflock.me map. You can see a map of where cameras are located in West Des Moines, but this is, of course, based on public submissions of concerned citizens. It's not information from the city itself. So where have you seen, I guess, success in your open records requests? Like, I know that things vary widely between different entities and their compliance with these requests, but do you have any good success stories with your efforts?
That depends on your definition of success. A lot of the time, the information that I'm actually requesting is not being delivered. It's just being withheld on the basis of one thing or another. But also, many times, organizations will just plain admit that they don't have records that they're supposed to have. there's a lot of compliance documentation that comes with these systems that every single flock customer is supposed to have, just to be compliant with federal regulations, etc. And many of them will admit in response to a public records request, "Oh, we don't have it." And then that, I use those sometimes as a basis for complaining to the Department of Public Safety, who is supposed to oversee compliance. So in those cases, I don't know if you want to call that successful, but it's definitely, it's a function of public oversight, I think, to be able to determine that necessary compliance documentation isn't in place in a lot of places.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's anything I've learned overall from like trying to pay attention to this and like, maybe move the needle a little bit towards, individual privacy rights, it's that local governments are lazy, not really complying with all of the laws they're supposed to. They don't have the resources to do it or the will to really actually function the way that they on paper are supposed to. And if you start to poke at that, you see that the whole thing is just a facade.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is the lack of guidance from the state of Iowa in these adoptions. It's basically a city, like Coralville, smaller cities, talking directly to Flock, a big multi-billion-dollar corporation. Flock will no doubt assure them that everything is legal, everything is fine. Just sign on the dotted line and give us your money.
Mm-hmm.
And the state of Iowa isn't really stepping in and defining, telling cities, these are the rules that you need to comply with, or going around and auditing that the rules are being followed. They're very, very hands off in that regard.
Right. Actually, there's a pretty good example of that in your piece called "The Many Faces of Flock Permits," which features a screenshot from, I think, Google Maps with some MS Paint annotation, which is like a permit for putting a flock camera up on a pole next to a public road. And you point out like how slapdash this is, and that it was approved by the Iowa DOT without seemingly any pushback or attempt at like meeting supposed like legal standards.
Yeah, and I just got a whole stack of new, fresh Microsoft Paint permits, like local to my area here in northeastern Iowa.
Yeah.
No, but that's also a part where the DOT is not providing complete guidance, because the DOT, as you can imagine, they don't have rules or regulations about specific for ALPRs and those types of things. So they appear to be kind of shoehorning this into what they call the utility accommodation program. But obviously, a commercially owned and operated license plate camera is not a public utility. So there's that big disconnect, and they're trying to shoehorn, and you end up with Microsoft Paint and approvals and
Yeah, I wonder, how could you justify this being a public utility? I mean, it's part of keeping us safe, right? To put this camera up on a pole is keeping the community safe from bad actors, all the criminals coming in from out of town, as my good friend Rex Brandstatter put it at a city council meeting. Obviously, the criminals are coming from outside of our town, right? There's no criminals that live here. We're good. And that's why we need these cameras. Well, let me read a little bit about this MS Paint drawing. I'll probably make this the image for the episode that we release. Deputy Sergeant Schweiger, who I assume is a licensed professional engineer, assures us in the permit that the wooden 18-foot breakaway pole will be put into the ground behind the guardrail, and that the flock device will be placed on top of the pole approximately 11 to 12 feet in the air with two metal bands. All right, so is everybody picturing this in your mind? 18-foot breakaway pole put into the ground next to this highway, and there's a camera 11 to 12 feet in the air strapped to the pole with two metal bands. I'm not quite sure about this. What exactly is a breakaway pole?
A breakaway pole, I believe those standards, I mean, I'm not a engineer by any means, but I believe those standards are set by National Highway Safety Board.
Uh-huh.
And those are, you pretty much see them whenever you're driving around. You know how the regular traffic signs are on these metal posts with all the holes in them?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are breakaway. The holes are removed so that if you crash your car or your motorcycle, whatever, into it, the pole will give way instead of being a rigid object that will instantly kill you.
Right. Okay. So what he's saying in this permit is that that's the type of post that they intend to attach this camera to. That's not
Well,
really
no,
what I've
because he's
seen.
saying it's wooden. And so there are, from my research, and again, not an engineer, but from my research, there are wooden breakaway poles. Those are mainly used for, like, watch out for deer signs, on the side of the highway. And they're
Sure.
just those little 1x2 strips of, wood that easily give way.
Right.
But yeah, what I've seen here locally is, things just resembling these giant pieces of construction lumber,
Yeah,
2x4s and stuff. Yeah, those are being claimed as breakaway poles. Very, very questionable.
Yeah, and according to your piece here, due to its height, the proposed 18-foot wooden pole cannot be both a breakaway pole and support any sort of equipment.
Right.
And you assume that 18-foot is a typo. And on the actual image here, it says 8-foot. So is it supposed to be an 8-foot pole?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I mean, it's not my job to decide if this project should be approved. It was approved by professionals, so I assume everything is above board then. Everything must be fine.
Well, it should be, but thankfully, the DOT actually has processes in place to make sure that that happens. So whenever a utility permit is completed, the licensed professional engineer associated with the project is required to certify that everything was installed as was written on the permit. So I filed open records requests to get those certifications. So far, haven't received a very helpful response yet, but I remain hopeful.
If anyone wants to go check it out, we're talking about this was a project in Fayette County. So if you're out there, keep an eye out for really tall wooden poles with cameras on them. If you feel up to it, you could test whether it's actually a breakaway pole. I'm not necessarily encouraging you drive your vehicle into public infrastructure, but for only for scientific purposes. We're experimenting.
If you happen to end up doing it, report back, please.
Sure. Yeah, don't do it on purpose, but if it happens, let us know. We should probably talk about Ian Mallory, because he's a friend of ours. He listens to the podcast. I don't know if he still does, but he did testify in court that he listens to the podcast. So I know that his name has come up in some of your investigations into Flock's presence in our area over here in Johnson County. In fact, in your piece about Tiffin and their weird situation with the county sheriff in trying to set up some flock cameras, Ian Mallory's name came up in a text message that you received from an open records request. Somebody from the city of Tiffin was texting, I forget who it was exactly, an exchange between somebody in Tiffin and somebody working for the county, probably the sheriff. They wrote on June 6th, "Let me know if you need anything from the city, even if a nudge to get the conversation going for Flock. Ian Mallory asked me today how things went." So, this is a guy that we know because he has built cases against some friends of ours for their public advocacy in various respects. And he seems to be deeply involved in the attempt to proliferate more of these license plate cameras. How often has his name come up in your work lately?
It comes up from time to time. It comes up. I can't say it comes up all the time because that wouldn't be true. But I do notice his name more than I notice pretty much anyone else's name. You're combining the words Flock and Iowa.
Right.
That, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say that there's anything like nefarious going on there, but it's interesting to me that his name continuously keeps being associated with.
Yeah. We know that he loves his cameras. He used many cameras to keep an eye on protests on campus at the University of Iowa, and all right, I have a video of him following me around as I walked near a building. I have a video of his camera zooming in on me and following me. So I may have a bit of a personal investment here. In case anybody listening doesn't know, he's a detective with the University of Iowa Police Department. But if you're listening to this, you should probably know. So his name comes up in the search audits as well, right?
Yes, it does. Just looking at those logs, I've had some questions about his use of the system. And again, I'm not saying that anything was improper, but if you look at how he uses the system, there appears to be like some rhythm, some pattern to it, like regular office hours, and he does a lot of searches using the flock system. And none of that is, unusual or exceptional. But then from time to time, you will notice that, at 2 or 3 a.m., there's a search for some traffic violation in Iowa City. In my mind, that kind of raises the question, well, why is a University of Iowa detective up in the middle of the night researching someone who ran a red light? Or I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah, I don't think that would be his jurisdiction. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either. But, it's obviously any Iowa law enforcement officer can enforce any Iowa law. So,
sure. Yeah.
It's definitely not illegal for him to do so. But at the same time, we've also seen in, I think, Loveland, Colorado was the big story there, where a local police department had shared their account with someone from the ATF, and then the ATF had shared that with immigration officials. So account sharing does happen. In the log files, we see that it happens a lot as well. There's also cross-jurisdictional account sharing that there's evidence of in documented instances. Those traffic stops at 3 o'clock in the morning, they raise questions.
So I have the University of Iowa Police Department's transparency portal pulled up, and I'm looking at the prohibited uses, right? Immigration enforcement being one, and you gave an example of how, if you share your account with somebody at the ATF who then shares the data with immigration enforcement, I mean, it's not really the city's problem, right? They didn't really do it directly. But then it says traffic enforcement is also a prohibited use. And it sounds like you saw in the search logs that somebody with the University of Iowa Police Department was searching through the flock data for the purposes of a traffic violation.
Yes, but I think there you're getting into like kind of semantics. I think the transparency portal is trying to make the point that, we're not using these as speed cameras or red light cameras or things of that nature.
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, I'm not aware of any restrictions on anything really. Some, like you say, some jurisdictions have adopted policies against immigration enforcement and reproductive health, that type of thing. But Flock doesn't really enforce anything. There's no general rule or policy that says this system can't be used for these specific purposes. And even if it is, what you'll see in the search logs, like I said, is mostly investigation or suspect.
Very vague. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when a local, when a city, for example, passes a policy restricting, how their data is used, it only is enforceable, within that city. Like they can only regulate their own police officers. Their policy doesn't really impact the corporation at all.
Right. It definitely doesn't impact the corporation. The statewide and national sharing that we talked about earlier, those don't require prior approval. Cities will adopt policies that say, we're going to require approval before we share any information, but at the same time, they'll be on the national network and anyone can just search at any time for any reason. The one exception that I do want to note, because I think it's important to note that it can be done, is San Diego in California. They have a number of flock cameras, and they said, we're not sharing this with anyone. We're not doing one-to-one sharing. We're not doing state. We're not doing national. We're not doing anything. Like, if anyone wants any data, they have to pick up the phone and call our police department. And yeah, that's the way you can control the dissemination of the data, I think. But other than that, it's a free-for-all.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about a recent piece of news with your website. Is it Cybele? Something called Cybele has been trying to get your website shut down. What's going on with that?
Well, I'll let you know as soon as I know more. But yeah, no, it seems like this company Cybele is a company that claims to be working for Flock. They have a very interesting business model where they essentially try to do trademark enforcement and kind of like reputation management by claiming that websites are phishing or doing, other criminal activities on the internet. So that's what they've been doing with this website. They've sent very, very vague complaints to Cloudflare, the hosting provider, saying that there's phishing going on, that we're trying to steal people's information, which is a very interesting claim because there's nothing on the site that even lets you put in your name or a password or anything.
Right. The only field is I can put in my license plate number.
Right. And that would be encrypted and then sent to the server to verify if it shows up there. So there's not even any way for that to be logged and stored.
Right.
So these claims are pretty exceptional. But Cloudflare, very large provider, they probably used an automated system, and they essentially shut the website down, put in a big banner notification saying, oh, this website shut down because of phishing. And so now there's kind of an appeals process that I'm trying to go through. I moved the website. Didn't take that long, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
So it was down for a few hours.
You're not hosted by Cloudflare at the moment?
Correct.
Okay.
I moved it, and about, an hour, 2 hours after I'd moved it, I got another notification from a new hosting provider.
Yeah.
Wow.
Saying that some company called Cybele. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is sort of how like copyright trolling works. It's a similar thing where they just, inundate hosting providers with these, spurious claims, and then there's an automated process because, they can't have full-time employees really, dealing with all of these reports.
Right. Yeah, and this company has done it before. They did it. A security researcher, Bob the hacker, he found, or they found, I'm not quite sure of their gender. They found vulnerabilities in Burger King's system, like very severe vulnerabilities. And they did the responsible thing to disclose the vulnerability to Burger King. Burger King went ahead, they fixed it within a day or so. And then they published, this is what we found, this is how it was fixed. They published that article on their website just as a general, here's what not to do type of article. It's very common in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And Cybele went after them, saying that they were infringing on Burger King's trademarks and copyrights, and that they were encouraging hacking and other forms of cybercrime by publishing this research. And so, it's just what this company does apparently, and it seems to be working.
So they were doing that on behalf of Burger King?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought better of Burger King. I didn't think that they would resort to something like that.
When I think Burger King, I think ethical.
Yeah, ethics, standards, integrity, above all.
Yeah. Well, it is a monarchy, which is
true.
Yeah, not kind of anti-democracy.
Sure.
But they did end up taking that down, and I believe that the article was never published again. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's
not what's going to happen with Have I Been Flocked.
Sometimes bullying works, but yeah, Chris is unbullyable. It's too important to him. There's one other thing I wanted to touch on with you, because I think I first heard about this from you. The city of Dubuque has like a remarkably robust surveillance system that they've been building up over the past few years. Could you give us just a glimpse of like what's going on over there?
Oh boy. Yeah, to start with the surveillance system, calling it robust would be an understatement, I think. So they have the flock cameras, I believe, off the top of my head, it's 22. It could be a slightly different number. But in addition to that, they have a network of cameras, about, I believe it's 14 or 1,500 cameras. You'd get a list in response to an open records request. And yeah, all of those cameras are being, fed into the police department, into what they call their precision policing center, where they're using a product called Axon Fusus. And that just kind of aggregates all of these cameras, the flock cameras and private security cameras and other data sources to, create this one big picture. Those 1,400 cameras, I'm still trying to get the details on this, but Dubuque is being very, very resistant to the public records request, so they won't even disclose the contracts or they will say they will, but it will cost, thousands of dollars to get the contract.
Right. That's one thing we didn't mention, is that there's really no restrictions on what a government entity can charge you to respond to your open records request. And sometimes it's completely insane.
Yeah.
The restriction is that it's reasonable, but yeah.
Right.
So yeah, from the research I've done so far, it appears that they have partnered with a company to do, I think ostensibly it's traffic management or traffic analysis or something along those lines. But essentially what's happening is that all of these like 14 or 1,500 cameras are being fed into the vendor's network. And that vendor will also run, various AI algorithms on these video feeds. Again, I don't know the extent of it, but looking at the vendor's website, they claim to be able to do things like detect traffic accidents and detect, traffic violations. And they specifically named jaywalking as one of the violations that they can detect. Yeah, the vendor, I believe, also does things like weapons detection and a whole host of things, really. But essentially the point of that is that there's 1,400 cameras in Dubuque that are being sent to a commercial third-party service for analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot for a town that small.
Right, yeah. And if there's anything I trust an AI process to do reliably, it's detect weapons on a camera feed.
Right.
Weapons are very distinct objects, and nothing that's not a weapon looks like a weapon.
Yeah, they're never concealed either.
Right. I love that they call out jaywalking as one of the crimes that they're going to pay attention to, which is like the classic frivolous crime. Like that, if you're going to joke about like a crime that's not a crime, jaywalking is like the number one example, right?
Right, yeah. And they put that front and center on their webpage. It's absolutely insane to me, but it's where we're at.
Yeah,
and
we're
Dubuque approved it.
Protecting the city of Dubuque from rampant jaywalking.
Yep. But yeah, no, they recently also invested, I believe it was $3 million into integrating all of their surveillance equipment, which again is a large amount of money for a town of that size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrating how? What do you mean by integrating it?
Yeah, like I said, they have all these various vendors like Flock and Axon and whoever, their surveillance cameras. And they're paying this company, Central Square, off the top of my head, $3 million to get all of that into sort of one screen where someone calls 911 and just all of the related information immediately pops up from all of the cameras, all of the data sources.
Okay, I see.
So it's a very big problem.
Yeah, that's... Well, we're working towards Langley's future utopia of zero crime through mass surveillance. So, if that troubles you, just think what it's going to be like in the future when there's no more crime. You may be uncomfortable with the invasions of privacy now, but it's going to pay off in the future when no crime is ever happening, and we'll all be happy and safe.
I look forward to that future.
There's some growing pains, but we'll get there and we'll all be fine, and no crimes will ever be committed against us, and we'll never commit any crimes ourselves, of course.
No, it's just the guys from out of town.
Yeah, you got to worry about the out of town guys.
There will, of course, still be, barbarians, trying to enter our territory. Yeah.
Yeah. In this game of civilization that we play.
So, we've filled an hour. Chris, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know about, aside from your website, haveibeenflocked.com, which they should visit?
I mean, I could talk about this all day if you let me, but if there's anything to impress on your listeners, it's try to get the information yourself. Like, go contact your city council, your county government, file those open records requests. A lot of them will be denied, but it's all valuable data points.
Yeah. Chris has been pulling a lot of weight here, so if anyone else can step up and try to harass city councils and stuff, I think it would be good to share the load a little bit on this.
I mean, I'm not encouraging harassment, but definitely exercise your right to know what's going on.
Hold them accountable.
You're right. I mean, I was I was using their terminology, because anytime you contact them about anything, it's wasting their time and bothering them.
It does seem that way, yes.
All right. A few things that I want to plug before we sign off here. As I mentioned last week, I did go on a podcast about Twin Peaks, the show about the show, with our friend Will Roberts. We talked about the episode The Condemned Woman, and I had a good time talking about that with Will and Atticus and Ben. You should go check that out if you're interested. Don't forget that Starbucks workers in Iowa City and Des Moines are currently striking, and you shouldn't give Starbucks your money anyway.
True.
You should support the striking workers, and don't give Starbucks your money. Probably ever. And I have a show coming up on January 2nd at Alley Cat in Iowa City. It's a food and winter clothing drive, so if you got an old coat, I mean, not old, but a coat that you're not using that you could donate, bring stuff like that to the show at Alley Cat on January 2nd. And here are the bands Blaster, Ascended Master, Chunks, Recess, and Fall of Babylon.
There's also a Des Moines Mutual Aid Bring the Heat benefit show to provide heating implements to the homeless community in Des Moines. That's going to be January 10th at XBK Live. It's got Boot Camp, Traffic Death, Wanderer, and Skinned Alive all playing. And definitely a good thing to support. I do give money to Des Moines Mutual Aid because, I mean, they're out there helping people directly instead of through, all these other organizations.
Right. The city government has, they're at war with the homeless. So, you got to step up somehow.
Pretty much.
Thanks for the reminder. January 10th at XBK. If you'd like to weigh in on anything we discussed on today's episode, we can be reached at the phone number 319-849-8733. You can leave a voicemail. You can text us. And it doesn't have to be relevant. You can say whatever you want to us. We don't care. A lot of those voicemails are featured on our series Rock Hard Call Us, which you can access at patreon.com/rockhardcaucus. Give us $1 and you can listen to a whole bunch of other stuff and support the continued existence of the podcast. In fact, this last week we released 2 episodes on our Patreon of Rock Hard Call Us and Speed Freak Read Speak, where Tony and I read a comic book about Sonic the Hedgehog. We're going to close out with some local music, as we always do. My friend Lex Leto released a new song called Don't Come Find Me, and released a music video of it as well the other night. Had a release party that I went to. That was a lot of fun. There's it takes place in an apartment, and then there's like a miniature version of the apartment, and the miniature version was at the party, so I got to look at it. It was like seeing a famous location.
Nice.
If you have music you'd like us to hear, please go to our website, rockhardcock.us. There's a link near the top to submit your music. We'd love to hear it, and we'd love to play it on the show. And that's all. Thanks for listening. Thanks again to the mysterious H.C. Van Pelt for appearing on the program and sharing some of his knowledge with us.
Yes, very much appreciated.
All right, we'll see you next time.
All of the noises outside make me just want to stay in. But when I'm left with myself, I don't know what to do. All of the people outside make me just want to stay in. But when I'm left with myself, I don't